My name is Emma. I am a side piece in everyone's life. Have you ever answered a phone call that changed your life forever? I did. In less than 60 seconds, I went from living a quiet, peaceful life to becoming the unpaid solution to someone else's mistakes. At the time, I thought I was helping my family. I had no idea I was walking straight into the biggest betrayal of my life. And for as long as I can remember, my older sister, Victoria, was the center of everyone's world. She was beautiful, outgoing, and effortlessly charming. Everywhere she went, people noticed her. My parents couldn't stop talking about her achievements, her popularity, and later, her picture-perfect marriage. Whenever relatives visited, conversations always circled back to Victoria. I wasn't jealous. At least, I tried not to be. I buried myself in school, worked after classes, paid my own college tuition, and slowly built a career from the ground up. No shortcuts. No financial rescue. Every promotion, every paycheck, every little success was something I had earned. Meanwhile, Victoria married Daniel, a successful real estate investor, before she turned 28. My parents acted like she'd won the lottery. She'll never have to worry about money, my mother loved to tell everyone. Then she'd look at me with a polite smile. Emma has always been independent. Independent. That was their favorite word. It sounded like a compliment, but it really meant, you're on your own. One rainy Tuesday night, my phone rang at exactly 2:18 a.m. half asleep. I reached across the bed and squinted at the screen. Dad. My stomach tightened immediately. He never called in the middle of the night. Hello. His voice sounded unusually calm. Victoria is coming to stay with you tomorrow. No greeting. No explanation. I sat upright. What happened? There was a long silence before he answered. Her marriage is over. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. I expected to feel sympathy. Instead, I felt fear. Because in my family, every crisis somehow became my responsibility. The next afternoon, Victoria pulled into my driveway in a luxury SUV packed with expensive luggage. 3 oversized suitcases, designer handbags, boxes of clothes, and enough shopping bags to stock a boutique. She climbed out wearing oversized sunglasses, even though the sky was gray. The moment I opened the front door, she walked past me without saying hello. She dropped everything in my living room and collapsed onto my couch. I can't believe this is happening to me. That was the first sentence she spoke. Not thanks. Not how are you. Just another reminder that the universe had somehow wronged her. I closed the door behind her. What happened between you and Daniel? She ripped off her sunglasses and rubbed her eyes. Men are unbelievable. That wasn't an answer. Over the next few days, little pieces of the truth started slipping through the cracks. Daniel hadn't cheated. He hadn't abandoned her. He hadn't become abusive. The reality was far less dramatic and far more uncomfortable. Victoria had spent money like there was no limit. Luxury vacations, designer clothes, constant online shopping, private fitness memberships, expensive dinners. When Daniel tried to slow the spending, they argued. When he suggested she go back to work, she refused. She insisted a wife shouldn't have to work when her husband earned enough. Eventually, the savings disappeared. Credit cards filled up. Loans piled higher. And the marriage finally collapsed under the weight of years of financial chaos. But according to my parents, Victoria was still the victim. That evening, Dad called again. You need to be there for your sister. I answered, staring at the dishes piled in my sink after cooking dinner for both of us. She's staying here. That's temporary. So, what else do you expect me to do? Everything. I frowned. What does that mean? It means emotional support, financial support, whatever she needs. I leaned against the kitchen counter. Dad, she's 37. She's vulnerable. I laughed quietly. What about me? Silence. Then came the sentence I'd heard my entire life. You're stronger. That one sentence explained everything. Strong people, apparently, weren't allowed to get tired. They weren't allowed to say no. They were simply expected to carry everyone else. Days turned into weeks. Victoria slept until noon almost every day. She ordered expensive takeout without asking. She left dirty dishes wherever she finished eating. Laundry piled up. Shopping boxes filled my hallway. Every evening after work, I came home exhausted only to find another mess waiting for me. She never once asked how my day had gone. Never asked if I was stressed. Never offered to help. One Saturday afternoon, I unlocked my front door and heard laughter coming from the living room. Victoria was on a video call with one of her friends. "Oh, I'm staying with Emma," she said casually. I paused without making a sound. "She makes really good money. Honestly, she can afford it." They both laughed. It would have been stupid to rent my own place. I stood frozen in the hallway. She wasn't embarrassed. She wasn't grateful. She genuinely believed my home and my paycheck belonged to her. By the way, if you're still listening, make sure you subscribe. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the hardest battles happen inside our own families, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. That night, something told me to check my finances. At first, I thought I was imagining things. Then, my heart dropped. Dozens of charges appeared on my credit card. Rideshare apps, luxury cosmetics, food delivery, online shopping, streaming subscriptions. The total stretched into thousands of dollars. Months earlier, I'd given Victoria the card for emergencies only. Apparently, she had created her own definition of emergency. The next morning, I confronted her. She barely looked up from her phone. "You said I could use it. For emergencies." "This is an emergency." I stared at her. "Buying designer makeup is an emergency?" She rolled her eyes. "You always make everything about money." "No," I said quietly. "You do." She stood, crossed her arms, and glared at me as if I had insulted her. "You've changed." Maybe I had. Or maybe I was finally starting to see my family for who they really were. A week later, my parents showed up at my house without warning. Neither of them carried groceries. Neither asked if I needed help. Instead, they sat down at my dining table with expressions so serious it felt like I was about to attend a business meeting. Dad folded his hands. "Victoria needs stability." I nodded. "She's living here." "That isn't enough." Mom sighed dramatically. "She has no income." Dad looked directly into my eyes. "We've decided you should send her $5,000 every month until she gets back on her feet." For a second, I honestly thought he was joking. Then I realized he wasn't. And in that exact moment, something inside me finally cracked. For a moment, I honestly thought my father was joking. Then I looked at his face. He wasn't smiling. He actually expected me to hand over $5,000 every month, as if I were responsible for fixing my sister's life. I looked from Dad to Mom, then to Victoria. She didn't seem embarrassed. She didn't even look surprised. It was obvious this conversation had happened before they walked through my front door. I was simply the last person to hear about the plan. I slowly pushed my chair back and stood. "No." The word wasn't loud. It wasn't angry, but it stopped the room cold. Dad frowned. "What did you say?" I said no. Mom looked at me as if I'd committed some terrible crime. "Emma, she's your sister." "I know exactly who she is." Dad's voice hardened. "Family helps family. I already am helping." I pointed toward the hallway, where Victoria's luggage still occupied half my house. "She's living here. I've paid every bill. I've bought the groceries. I've covered expenses for weeks." "And that's what decent people do," he replied. I shook my head. "No. Decent people also say thank you." Nobody spoke. The silence was almost uncomfortable. Victoria finally rolled her eyes. "You always have to make yourself the victim." I laughed, not because anything was funny, but because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The victim? I looked around my own home. My savings are disappearing. I work 10-hour days while you sleep until noon. You spend money that isn't yours, and somehow I'm the selfish one. She crossed her arms. "I've been through a divorce. And I've been carrying everyone else's problems my entire life." Dad stood up. "I didn't raise you to be like this." I met his eyes. "No. You raised me to believe that saying yes was my only value." For the first time, neither of my parents had an answer. They left a few minutes later, clearly disappointed that their plan hadn't worked. Victoria didn't say another word that evening. She locked herself in the guest room and slammed the door. Oddly enough, I slept better than I had in weeks. The next morning, I made coffee, opened my laptop, and started reviewing every bank statement from the past 6 months. The numbers shocked me. Small purchases, large purchases, food deliveries, online subscriptions, shopping apps. Individually, they didn't seem enormous. Together, they added up to thousands of dollars. I printed every statement and organized them into neat folders. Then I called my bank. The representative helped me cancel the card and issue a replacement. Any automatic access Victoria had was gone within minutes. I didn't announce it. I simply waited. The explosion came 2 days later. She stormed into my home office without knocking. My card was declined. It isn't your card. You know what I mean. I canceled it. Her jaw dropped. You had no right. I almost smiled. I had every right. She stared at me as if I had betrayed her. I can't believe you'd do this to me. I closed my laptop. I can't believe you believed I'd pay forever. She left furious, calling our parents before she even reached her bedroom. Within an hour, my phone was buzzing nonstop. I didn't answer. Not a single call. Instead, I let every voicemail save itself automatically. Something had changed inside me. For years, I'd rushed to explain myself. This time, I realized I didn't owe anyone an explanation. The following weekend, I invited my parents over. Not to argue. To be clear. When they arrived, I handed each of them a folder. Dad looked confused. What's this? A record of everything I've paid for since Victoria moved in. Mom slowly flipped through the pages. Receipt after receipt. Utility bills. Groceries. Medical expenses. Furniture she insisted she needed. Food deliveries. Streaming services. Every dollar carefully documented. Neither of them expected that. I've helped because I wanted to, I said calmly. But today that changes. Dad looked up. What are you talking about? I'll continue letting Victoria stay here for 2 more weeks while she finds another place to live. Victoria's eyes widened. You're kicking me out? I'm giving you time to become independent. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious. Mom immediately started crying. Families don't treat each other this way. I took a slow breath. No. Healthy families don't expect one person to sacrifice everything while everyone else contributes nothing. The room fell silent again. This time it felt different. Nobody was shouting. Nobody was interrupting. For once, everyone had heard exactly what I meant. Dad stood first. If you do this, don't expect us to support you later. His words were meant to scare me. Instead, they made me realize something. I'd already been supporting myself for years. I smiled politely. I wasn't expecting you to. He stared at me for several seconds before turning toward the door. One by one, they all walked out. Victoria packed over the next several days. She wasn't happy. She barely spoke to me. When moving day arrived, she loaded the last of her belongings into our parents' SUV. Before getting in, she looked back. I hope you're happy. I thought about everything that had happened. The sleepless nights, the guilt, the pressure, the endless expectation that my life existed for everyone else's benefit. Then I answered honestly. I don't know if I'm happy yet. I looked around my quiet house. But for the first time in a long time, I feel peaceful. She closed the car door without another word. As they drove away, I stood in the driveway until the vehicle disappeared around the corner. The silence that followed wasn't lonely. It was freedom. Over the next few months, my finances recovered. My home finally felt like mine again. I started traveling, reconnecting with friends, and spending weekends doing things I'd put off for years. Every now and then, relatives would mention that Victoria was still trying to rebuild her life. I genuinely hoped she did. Not because I owed her anything, but because everyone deserves the chance to stand on their own feet. As for me, I learned the most important lesson of my life. Being kind doesn't mean saying yes to everything. Being strong doesn't mean carrying people who refuse to walk. And loving your family should never require sacrificing your peace. So now I want to ask you something. If you were in my position, would you have done the same thing, or would you have given your family one more chance? Share your thoughts in the comments. I genuinely want to know how you would have handled it.